the idea of harmony is two concepts that are completely different that are also in tune. And so my juxtaposition on this is in harmony completely with the wordsmithing, knowing how to be intentional with the words and taking control over the opportunity empowers both, like both realities support one each other.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Jackson Calame. Jackson teaches visionary entrepreneurs how to unlock sustainable revenue growth and expand their legacy by becoming a power brand in their market. 96% of businesses fail within the first 10 years. Jackson teaches businesses not only how to avoid failure, but how to win by becoming a true leader in their market. Your key to success as growth occurs and operation shifts will require that you evolve. Developing an incredible culture built around a clear vision dedicated to customer satisfaction must be the focal point of a company's mission in order to ultimately thrive. Personal growth will be necessary. Personal shifts will occur. Cuts will likely be made as accountability begins to expose who your contenders are and who your pretenders are. It's not personal, it's business. And in order for everyone to win, a business can not only afford to have leaders who pull their own weight, who add value to the mission, not anchors who will hold you back. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Jackson. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Wyatt, thanks for hosting. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic for the listeners or people viewing. We've had an absolutely amazing conversation prior to hitting record. Jackson and I were talking about it, and I know, the listeners that have been around for the last 4 years, you know that I honestly believe that people are connected for a reason. And, we just started talking and we just connected immediately. It was just amazing. And the sincerity from Jackson and the energy that I could feel from him. He lives in Texas. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It's real. It doesn't have to be where you're face to face. Yeah, it would be nice to see Jackson, give him a high five, maybe a hug, but we'll do air hugs.
Virtual hug.
Virtual hug. Yeah. Like I always do this to my grandkids, like this. And at the end of the day, you really can connect. And I believe the universe and for me, God has literally put this man in front of me. I hope you can feel it as well as I do already. We're going to have a great conversation. There'll be some chuckles, some seriousness. There'll be some highs and lows, and that's what a great conversation should be. So, Jackson, one of the things that I really like focusing on, and it's not the fluff piece of a person's backstory. I like the origin. I like the right to the nitty gritty of, like, at your age now, and you have 4 beautiful children, as you mentioned. You got to your place because of choices and decisions that other people maybe made for you as a young child that affected your choices and decision in young adulthood into where you are today. I'd really like it if you could share whatever you feel comfortable at whatever age you want to start. Share your origin story of where you started and and where you are today and how you find that it's intertwined and created the visionary that you are today.
Wow, Dwight. That's a powerful path. Thank you for teeing it up that way, and thank you for taking the time before the show too. to exchange and swap stories and principles. And you go through a type of depth that very few podcasters and mainstream media, especially, I mean, mainstream media is turn and burn, turn and burn, turn and burn, turn and burn most of the time. And on the podcast world, people try to dive in a little bit deeper, but you have a super gift of emotional intelligence to dive in at a level where, again, it's not seen in the marketplace. We don't even dive into that depth on our own show. So I want your audience to just be aware of just how thorough your process is for getting to know somebody, because you can't do what you're able to tee up without that level of depth. And it's a genuine, fun yet masterful experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The depth as we grow older, what I experience at least is I start to discover more about the depth that I couldn't see previously, right? And I'm so grateful for those types of lessons. I was training a sales organization. Really, I was part of a program called the Sales Mentor, and paid like $9,000 to get into this cohort. And the program was wonderful. I learned a lot in it. I benefited the most out of it probably is from anybody, because I had a depth of experience as an entrepreneur, and I didn't realize how much I knew already about influence. Through my business years, I began to doubt, like, well, do I really know about sales or do I not? Is that my struggle? Sometimes we're good at something, but we don't know we're good at it, right? So I paid that money, went into it, learned a lot, and realized quickly that the other 14 to 15,000 people in there, they weren't going to have a shot in the market. They were focused on high ticket sales. They were focused on trying to make the money, and they were trying to make this mindset shift, but they didn't have access to the coaching on how to really show up authentically, like what you were talking to me about before the show. And so I started training on the side. On Mondays, I would host this mastermind, and 60 to 80 people would come to this mastermind every week. And everybody would ask me, Jackson, where the heck did you learn to sell? Like, where did you learn to sell? Where did you learn to sell? And I thought, my mission, that's what I always thought, was I served a mission in Uruguay, and I was talking to 80-year-old atheists about God in a language that I couldn't speak. And that's probably the hardest sell there is. Is teaching somebody about God who's got 80 years of experience over you, and you're 19 years old, trying to teach them a different language. So that's what I gravitated towards. But to tie it back to your question, I eventually got to a point where I remembered something from my childhood. And somebody asked me, where did you learn to sell, Jackson? And I said, when I was 3 years old, I heard my parents screaming at each other in the bedroom. And I ran through the master bathroom, ran through the closet, jumped over the bed, pushed them apart, and said, stop yelling. I didn't scream at them. I had this gift of inspiration. They both stopped. My dad, alcoholic, he could have done whatever to me. I could have been very harmed in that situation, but I became the peacemaker. And whether I became it or whether I always was, that stayed with me. And as my parents divorced when I was 4, I remember feeling the power of learning about that. My dad got moved in with somebody like right away afterwards, and she had kids, and he was, out of all the movies I've ever seen, the most verbally, spiritually, mentally abusive person I've ever seen. Not to me, I was his golden child, but to her kids. And so the favor was returned, right? They did not want or like me because he did not want or like them. And so I grew up in these 2 homes, my mom's home, which was peace and love and kindness and all the good things, and my dad's home, which was abuse of all levels, drugs, alcohol, the whole 9 yards. And my focus point was, how do I bring love into this environment? How do I improve situations? How do I help people transition from the feelings I didn't want in my life to the feelings I did want in my life? And so sales for me was about survival. It was about making sure that my environment around me was one that I could feel safe and present in. And that's where everything really started to kick off. You mentioned my kiddos. I was the youngest, so I became an uncle at the age of 9. I held the baby for like 15 seconds and gave him back. I didn't want to drop him. I was terrified, right? So I held him for a little bit, gave him back. I turned around and I remember thinking, I want to be a dad. What's a dad? Right? And so I started watching my brother-in-law, and I start watching dads at practice and sports. I start watching dads at church, the guy who drags his kid out by his collar, like pissed off because his son's screaming in church or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. Right. And then the next guy, I see him take his son, and his son's screaming even more, but he walks back holding him, kneels down, puts him on his knee. He's whispering something. The faces look nice. The kid calms down really fast. They're back in their seat before, you can still hear the other kid in the hallway. And that dad's probably having a panic attack. I'm like, I want to be like the second dad. I want to be the one who does that. Let's be real. I've been both. I've had my meltdowns as a parent, and I've had my opportunity to show up and be a great dad too. But I have been a student of all the surroundings because I did not have the type of home that I wanted to create. So every time I was in somebody else's home, I was watching how did they do things in their home. And I will always be a student of life and focus on what can I do in the here and now to maximize my here and now and not worry about tomorrow.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Student of surrounding, because we talked about that being me educating my children. And it wasn't something that I was necessarily not taught as well by my own father, very successful businessman. He always told me to watch and be a people watcher. But how you put it is so elegant, right? Really, student of our surroundings, because we are part of that surrounding as human beings. Right. So when we're people watching, we got to look past just the people. We got to look at the environment they're in to see if that environment has any control over their outcome of what they give us. Right. And
Remind me, Taylor Welch. Right. So again, same guy. Taylor Welch was the owner of Sales Mentor, got his own program now, separate from that as well. And he was asked by one of his mentees over a lunch, what's the most important factor or key to success? And I loved his answer. I'd never really thought about it. He said, environment. He said, a weak person in a strong environment will outperform a strong person in a weak environment.
100% agree. That is, and this is kind of a segue, but wordsmithing. Being a person that is cognizant and really attentive to the words that they utilize. You talk about a weak person in a strong environment, strong and a weak. It's the same thing as using the right, correct verbiage. The words we use can incite anger, or we can say it in a different way, and it excites, hope or happiness. Yet it's the same meaning, but we say it in a different way. We present it in a different way. And that's one thing I've practiced now since I started my personal development journey. And I still remember 1993, right? 31 years ago, I started under personal development, and I read something, and I wish I could remember what book it was because I've digested so much in a really good way, obviously. But it talked about being that wordsmith that, there's a thesaurus for a reason. You can you can have 20 words meaning the same thing, but one word's going to incite a different emotional response, a different physical response. And I've worked at that so long, so I really appreciate that student of surrounding. So sorry for the segue.
Oh, no, I love it. In fact, right? One thing I've worked on is actually the exact opposite.
Oh, really?
100%. So I have a sister that you defined to a T. And she would probably hate that I said that. Her construction of life is built around education and semantics, in my humble, awkward opinion. Right. And so if I use the wrong words with this individual, holy crap, the level of anger, wrath, or defensiveness that can occur is humbling, and not something that I want to invoke. And so it is far better that her and I do not communicate. because I don't have the communication capacity to meet her where she's at with how she defines
No, okay.
the word choices that she is so built around controlling. And I learned to be the opposite way, I think, from the childhood. My dad's home was full of curse words, people yelling at each other. So I can curse with the best of them at this point in life. But I grew up in a home where that was completely unacceptable and not appropriate, and with a religion that's pretty fearful of word choice. And I realized, like, wait a second. Jesus himself used words that were controversial, like raka, which apparently meant fool, and fool was kind of the "you're an effing moron"
Yeah.
back then. And we try to. I said I don't want to be a slave to words. I want to be the master of recognizing that. Wait a second, somebody from the Bronx may use the F word like I use the word thank you. It may just be part of their vernacular that they grow up with, and they don't have the same intent as if somebody is coming at me and threatening my life with, I'm going to effing kill you. Right? And the intent, the tone, the cadence, all of those factor into that reality. But because I speak Spanish and I learned the hard way through lots of relationships, no, I speak fluently, but I speak fluently at about a 14-year-old capacity. The challenge of that, Dwight, is I don't understand innuendos and I don't know where the double meanings exist. But
Oh,
if
okay.
I use that phrase and I'm in the wrong circumstance with people who don't quite know me, I can put myself in serious jeopardy and serious danger because you're a 36-year-old man. You know what you meant by that. You know exactly what you were trying to say. The same reality exists even within the English language, where if we're not careful about giving people space to use words differently than we think, somebody who was in an abusive relationship where they were told, I love you, whack, why don't you understand that I love you, smack. That person might really have a strong hatred for the word love, even they might have appreciation for all the principles that exist behind it. So I want to understand the vernacular and the words so I can communicate as well as possible, but I also want to have the opposite, the detachment from
No, I
how I
understand.
define it. It's how I need to understand what other people interpret and their perspective on that particular matter.
Yeah, I agree. I guess we're looking at wordsmithing different. I'm not saying I'd
Yeah,
be your sister where I'd correct somebody. I would never ever do that. I'm saying that all I can do is control what comes out of my mouth. And sometimes we, and I appreciate what you're saying. We all grow up in different environments. I have a daughter that, for her verbiage and the way she communicates is about cuss words. I have another daughter that's offended by it. And it
mhm,
can cause challenges and issues. And as I mature over my lifetime and I continue to personal develop till the day I take my last breath, I understand what you're saying, how people communicate, and I adapt. So
yeah.
I don't use
It's like a guitar and a
wordsmithing.
piano. Both matter.
Yeah. Yes, I don't sit there and use wordsmithing and because again my listeners know this because I've had this conversation with a few people. I use it to ensure that when I'm trying to articulate an idea or an emotion or communicate with people, that I'm doing it in a way to not use a word that can trigger them. Yes, you're right, that
Exactly.
word maybe is something that they're just going to have to listen to because that's who I am and that's how I learned. But
Exactly.
I found over my lifetime the words that I learned weren't necessarily conducive to getting that relationship that I was looking for, not the manipulation or trying to attain things from them, but that true connection, that heartfelt connection with somebody. And knowing that, I started being that wordsmith to make sure that I not necessarily changed the way I communicate because I can cuss with the best of them too,
Right.
right? But I also know that when is the right time to do it? When is it used to define what I'm trying to say to give it some more oomph? When
It's
is
a
it over?
masterful principle of marketing.
Yeah,
100%.
so I want to be I still am my genuine self. I don't want anybody to think that I'm not, but I use wordsmithing to ensure that I get more than not, right? That I please more than I offend. I'm not trying to be a people pleaser. I'm trying to be somebody that gives somebody what. So if I'm around somebody that cusses all the time, I'm gonna cuss more. That's just it is the way it is,
Are you a
right?
musician?
I used to be. I haven't
Okay.
picked up a guitar in
So
years. I used to
that's the
play
beauty.
guitar. Yeah.
The idea of harmony is two concepts that are completely different that are
Mm.
also in tune. And so my juxtaposition on this is in harmony completely with the wordsmithing, knowing how to be intentional with the words and taking control over the opportunity empowers both, like both realities support one each other or one
Yeah,
another.
it's amazing though that we can have siblings, we can have family members, we can have best friends where we just get to a point where we rub each other the wrong way and we can still love one another, but we don't like each other's company. We don't like each other's, verbiage. We don't like each other's body language. And, I have that with my own siblings. I love them to pieces. I see them once in a while, but we're completely unique, different individuals. And I come to a point in my life, and so have they, where we're in small doses, we're okay. In large
Correct.
doses, we're not. And I'm okay with that. And there's people that sit and fret every single day because they can't communicate right with their parent or their uncle or their cousin, their friends, their siblings. And I'm just like, you know what? Life is so short. It is in session. This is not a dress rehearsal. And I use that phrase all the time. Life's in session. This is not a dress rehearsal. To find those people that you can communicate with, that again, back to that 70-30 principle. More times than not, I'm so excited to talk to Jackson. I'm so excited to talk to one of my siblings. And if all the times it sparks, like I think of a grinder where people take metal and you see all those sparks coming off of it, you know what? Go the other way. Your life could end tomorrow, and you living a life of strife, worrying about what other people are thinking or how they're going to respond when you see them is a waste of energy because they honestly, most of them aren't thinking about you, and you're wasting your energy thinking about them. So think about positive and yeah, just move forward. Be grateful. But I've had this is years. People listening that have been around for a long time know I've been working on this for years. I'm a
100%.
working project. I am not perfect. I don't want anybody to think that, but I do try to work at being a better version of myself for serving others because when I serve others, their energy comes back and I feel better about my life. I really do,
Yep. 100%.
right? So, one of the things you talked about, you were, you 3 years of age and you separated your parents, right? And you also mentioned that you had the gift of inspiration. You figured out as you got older that you were a peacemaker. Like that is amazing. That's stuck with me because most people don't realize that they have a purposeful life or even at a very young age. In my book, which is How to Live Life on Purpose and Not by Accident, part of my Give a Heck brand is we don't give acknowledgement to our past lives, our origin, and what we have done that have made us who we are. And being a gift, having that gift of inspiration, being a peacemaker, I just wanted to acknowledge that. That is so powerful, and thank you for sharing that. And then at 9 years of age, wanting to be a dad and being, it's again back to that student of surrounding. I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to have lots of kids. I always wanted to be that person that was at the soccer field, like you talked about the two separate dads. I wanted to be that dad that was present, not thinking about running. Because my dad, very successful business owner, was at very little of my sporting stuff. He was so engaged in his business. My mom was the person, she was the nurturer for me. My dad was the person that taught me a lot of business principles, a lot of different things about being that student of human nature. And I had that yin and yang, but I always wanted to be a dad. So I appreciate you sharing that too, because, and I'm still so ecstatic to be a dad, right? To,
Absolutely.
to be that, what many people referred to me for many years in my life, they called me a dad mom because I fulfilled the
Yeah.
role. Fulfilled the role for many years. And I actually thought about starting a podcast about that, but it ended up with Give a Heck and having unique people from
Awesome.
all walks of life, so not just focused on being a dad, you know what I mean? But thank you. I really appreciated your origin story. Is there anything else you want to add in regards to your origin before I move on?
Well, the dad mom, I'm going to borrow that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I call it. So I started for a little while doing live videos. So during the pandemic, I did 837 live videos, right? Every single day I did a live video, and then I eventually just burned out and quit doing it. But before I started that 837 days, I was experimenting for about the 90 days. I did one every 2, 3 days, and I called it Dad Momisms. It kind of sounds corny, but I talk about
I like
different
corny.
things. Yeah. So it was called, I called my little videos that I did. I said, this is, Dwight, and I'm doing my dad momism and for today. And I talk about different things about being a dad and a mom to my children when I was raising them. And it
So
just, it was kind of, I agree. I like corny too, but it didn't fit into the overall vision of what I had illustrated out for what I wanted Give a Heck to be. And Give a Heck wasn't even in existence yet. And I hadn't even figured out what it was going to be called. And I was blessed to have so many people with giving me great conversations and information to come up with, well, my last name's Heck. Why am I not utilizing it? And why am I not using the shock factor and going give a heck? Right.
yeah,
But
exactly.
at the end of the day, I really appreciate our conversation, but we're going to move on to talking about some business stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, whatever's best for your audience, Dwight, of course.
Awesome, awesome. So, Jackson, you teach about business expanding their legacy by becoming a power brand in the market. First of all, most people don't know the definition of legacy. I know that from my own business because I deal with legacy planning all the time. And they don't understand what people experience when is legacy now or is legacy once I'm gone. So can you explain what you believe the definition of legacy or how you teach it, and is legacy present right now or is legacy only once you've passed? Could you fulfill that question, please, or double part question, I mean?
You've inspired me. Most people probably aren't going to like this answer. And the answer would be that I don't believe in defining that for others, right? And so that goes back to that definitions of words. If somebody hears what I'm saying, they're going to gravitate, the right people are going to gravitate towards, oh, that's me. Oh, I'm in line with that. Oh, I can't force that on somebody. If somebody doesn't get it, I go back to Jesus. He that has ears, let him hear. He that has eyes, let him see. And there was no coercion or manipulation or force on trying to help people understand. Like you got, that's about presence, right? So I have other programs. There's other places I can take people who don't quite align with that. But how do I do that? They'd have to align with wherever else I take them. It can't be me forcing them or pushing them in that direction. So those who understand the value of, and this is about being a leader too, right? If you're on stage and we've got 1 million people who are listening in, right? If we had 1 million people right now listening in, then right now my phones would already be ringing off the hooks. Your phones would already be ringing off the hooks because the people who can capture the essence of, wow, these are the who. That's what I focus on. Who am I aligning my life with, right? And then I don't start with why. I love you, Simon Sinek. That's my second step. Do I have the right people with me? And if I do, why are we doing what we're doing? If we align on that, then the how and the what, the legacy, the definitions, the how does the market work and all of that, then I will very much enjoy the process of exploring that with people. But they've got to come in with a preconceived notion that what this guy is talking about makes sense. If they're hearing me and they're saying, well, this guy's too frou-frou for me, then I'm too frou-frou for you. Like, that's okay. If I'm too corny for you, then that's okay. I love what The Rock said. Dwayne Johnson said, some people don't like me. Some people don't have good taste.
Yeah,
So
that's funny.
legacy, man, it's up to you to define that. And is it my legacy? It's in the present. I've learned to allow it to be in the present. I didn't start that way. I used to be a lot more like Grant Cardone. I used to, I used to be very bold and in your face, and I would use words like, you should do this. And it sounds softer, but you're still telling people what to do. Go do this, Dwight. You need to launch this. Why haven't you done that? Those are coercive, manipulative, insincere, disrespectful of vision, controlling, toxic, slave-inducing phrases. I love Grant Cardone as a human being. I love him as a brother, and I hope he chooses to adjust that, because I also learned from Eli Wild that when it comes to postures, if I speak at people, I will certainly have an authority over those individuals, but the only people who will follow me are people who are willing to be subordinate to me. I won't have an influence over alphas, over people who actually want to lead their own lives. And I had to lose a couple of relationships along the way that, again, I was like Grant Cardone. I was kind of controlling people and didn't see it, didn't realize it. I would have never said I was controlling. I never could have seen it without losing those relationships. And then in hindsight, going through therapy too, going to communication specialists to figure it out, I came to realize, whoa, I'm the problem. I'm not that great of a leader. I'm a controller, not a leader. And as I made that shift, I started to then appreciate, like, okay. And then eventually I launched my podcast, Vision Pros. And my goal for that podcast is to give people the space to help me see what their vision is. Not for me to manipulate or control it, for me to explore it and see and appreciate it for what it is, because I believe all of us on this earth are visionaries. Whether it's the trees outside your window that you're focused on and present with, or the cows outside my window that I get excited about. I'm like, man, this is nice. That might be my vision in the moment, or it might be the vision I want to focus on, but it's not for you to decide. It's not for the world to decide. It's for me to decide what my vision is. And it's for others to decide what their vision is. And if they want to align with me, awesome. Let's do great things together.
But isn't that what life is, though, as we evolve, as we choose to think differently, to have somebody's differing opinion literally be something that we percolate on, that we don't automatically defend against, or we don't automatically, be negative about. We're think to ourselves, Jackson just said something that really is profound. It's a little bit different from what I normally think, but I'm going to percolate on that. And maybe I can take some of what I have and what Jackson has, and I can mix it together into that melting pot and change my viewpoint. Or maybe what I thought was completely left of center and Jackson is center, and I changed my thought process altogether. But I don't ever beat myself up about it. It's called evolving as a person. And I like how you put it. You believe legacy is present today. So do I, 100%. Did I always believe that? No, because I was manipulated by certain individuals, allowed to, because I allowed it. I can only blame me. Blaming others never solves anything. Pointing the finger solves nothing. Grant Cardone, I've seen him speak, been like 10 feet from a stage from him. I like what Grant can stand for. I don't like Grant's personality. That's just, I have to agree. I find him very controlling and offensive. And I've watched him literally scream at people that are multimillionaires and offend them. And what's the point? So you think you're better than other people? Like, I don't connect. Like, there's people that like Grant great. You be in his world.
Yeah.
This is Dwight's world, and I'm looking for people that want to be in Dwight's world and Jackson's world, and all of our worlds intermingle and we overlap one another, and we have our own little universe. Jackson, Dwight, you know what I mean? That's what I'm
thinking. Think of it this way too, Dwight. Something that's less painful. If you've got a friend that is a horrible cook, right? You're not going to want to eat their food, but you can still be their friend, right? And so if you make social media posts that I think are as bad as my, friend who can't cook, no, I'm not going to follow you on social media. But that doesn't mean we don't have other areas where we connect and coexist. Not there. Just because somebody is manipulative and coercive in one side of their life too, they may actually be quite humble and pleasant on another side of their life. Or yes, they may be straight up Hitler. We don't always know and what's there, but we don't have to cut everybody off in our life and assume that just because they're not like us, they're evil or they're bad or we can't get along. And read some books or listen to some YouTube videos on healthy conflict or the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni. Phenomenal resource to teach diplomacy skills and understand how to make space for people who think differently.
Yeah, there's so many great books. I read a book back in the early 90s. She's since long passed away, called Personality Plus by Florence Littauer. What an amazing book. I've delved into it numerous times. She wrote many books, Silver Boxes, and it was always about dealing with people that were unique and different, and listen and understanding what a person's personality is from a very young age, even right out of the crib, right? Just stuff like that. Books that I've ingested over the years. Silver Boxes was about giving people that, what we talked about earlier, giving people that gift of, that smile, what we had in that conversation before we
Yes.
record, or giving that compliment, being genuine. And these are all people that have molded and helped my
You
thought
taught me something
process.
huge on that too. I want to share that with the audience because I was tempted a little bit ago, and now it comes back, right? That feeling of inspiration. It's like, okay, no, I definitely now have to bring this up. And you talked about being in that sphere, or having that adjacent position where it aligns with you enough to learn. Like you were talking to me about how you're teaching your own children about being genuine and sincere, like giving compliments, making sure that you lift people up and doing so by being genuine, being sincere, and how you never want to hear them or see them manipulate somebody with that type of, with a compliment. And I literally wrote that down right away. And I was like, oh, I'm going to put this on my board where things that I want to remember to talk to my kids about when they're with me. I get one Saturday, right? I get every other week. And it's not every other week. I get every other weekend with my kids. And it's Friday night, dinner time, bed. Saturday, we get the full day. Sunday, and unpacking Friday night, right? Then it's repacking things up on Sunday, going to church, a little bit of time together. But I have a very short window to be able to figure out what is best for our children during this window. How do I divide myself with what their needs are? And the only way I can do that is prayer, man. That's it, right? And so when I have these moments where something like this comes to me when I'm not with my kids, it's an opportunity for me to, like, I get that inspiration. It's like, ooh, this is a hot topic for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know what they're going through in their lives in all situations. But Dwight, you triggered that for me. And I have a feeling other people that are listening in will benefit tremendously from thinking, well, how do we teach our employees how to be genuine and sincere in their compliments? How do we ask our loved ones to maybe do that with us and help us be more conscious of doing that with them? How do we give this to our children? The same lesson applies universally to all of our relationships. And I was blown away by you giving that to me, and I appreciate it.
Oh, no, I appreciate you acknowledging that. But yeah, we are inspired. You talk about inspiration. We're inspired by each other. And as I mentioned, I've been inspired throughout my life by certain things, certain individuals. My goodness, like at the end of the day, though, the key for me, and I'm not going to speak for other people, is being receptive and open to hearing differing opinions, or maybe it's something new. It's not even an opinion. It's just like being open to going, what? Not being all of a sudden, well, that's kind of crackerjack. That's kind of woo-hoo, whatever you want to call it.
That's when
At the
my
end of
ears
the,
open the most, man. That is it. You're nailing it.
yeah,
That's Mark
yeah.
Twain, right?
But you got to
Saying
work on it though.
opposite direction of what everybody else is doing, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. We have to train ourselves to be open to that and realize that you're safe when you're doing that.
Well, you can't be in coast mode your whole life. You can't just coast through life.
I
Or
won't.
like I tell people, at the end of the day, our brain is a giant computer. It needs to be fed stuff. And if you don't feed stuff to it, and positive things, and maybe things that are contradictory to what you believe, to continue to grow and be on the climb in life instead of camped. Those that are camped in life are my clients, the people I've met in my life. Sometimes it's current people in my life, family. They're miserable because
Yeah.
their brain is just going, what are you feeding me? You're feeding me this drama. You're feeding me this negativity. You're watching the news 3 times a day. You only hang out with negative people. You watch negative movies. You watch shows that are all based on drama, and you talk. And then, oh, I go to work and, hey, did you watch that last night? Can you believe that person did? And it's all based on not even reality. And their brains are camped.
Hmm.
They stop feeding it. And for everybody listening or watching, all I would really like for you to do is just stop and listen to other people and realize that there's so much out there in the world for you to learn from, whatever it is, podcasts, books, other human beings, right? There's so many good. I've been to hundreds. Literally, I was on a I had a friend of mine. We were communicating. He had me on his podcast. I've known him for years, and he says, "How many conferences do you think you've been at in the last 30 years since you started your personal development?" Like he says, from your business to like for finance or life coaching or whatever. I said probably 300 and some. And he paused. He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." At one point in time, I'd go to sometimes a couple a month in my local community, or I'd fly to the States, or I'd fly to Europe, whatever. Why did you do that? Because I hadn't found my center yet. I
Hmm.
hadn't found what I was looking for. And once I got that, now it's only a few I go to. And
Hmm.
it has to be very unique and on the level of where I'm at, right? Where I
Right.
want to be. And not saying I'm level in my thought, I'm continuing to grow, but it's got to be in my same sphere. But I
Right.
said it took me years. And part of the problem was is that, like I tell people that if I was to talk to my 19-year-old self, listen more, be
Yeah.
more observant, be more open to differing opinions and learning. And I said, even, getting into my middle 20s and stuff, I was still stubborn. And then when I started my evolution of personal development, I was I was like a shotgun blast. I was everywhere. I wanted to try it all, from Tony Robbins to Grant Cardone to, the
Right.
list goes on, right? Just different things that I wanted to experience. And I'm telling people this because don't be afraid to just try it
Yeah.
all.
Process of refinement, right? It's a huge, huge process, and there's so much opportunity to learn from all those experiences.
Yeah, I tell people I live my life like a buffet, right? Even my religion, and I'm very God-fearing, and I love how you talked about the fact. And I, at one point in time, was like you, had my kids every other weekend, and I have them Wednesdays, and then I got joint custody of them, and eventually, unfortunately, I had to go to court, and I got full-time custody of them,
Yeah.
and because just for safety measures, because I was a
Right.
lot more stable of an environment, but I was the same way. Saturday we had the whole day. Sunday we went to church. Sunday afternoon we'd hang out. Sunday evening I'd take them back to their moms. And the first few years of that, it didn't feel like I was connected enough to them. So I always started having those epiphanies, like you said. What do I have for conversations, and what do I say to my kids? Because they'd come to me with negative things from their other environment, good
Yeah.
or bad. I'm not
Right.
saying all of it was bad.
Right.
And we'd have conversations. And I'd try to think of those, now when I think about years later, those dad momisms where I'd try to think about what can I say to them that's not going to, enhance their anger, their upsetness, their sadness, their mood, but it's going to put a positive slant on it. And I've been going through this for years, brother. So good for you
Yeah.
for working on it already too, right? That's
Absolutely.
something to pat
Blessing.
yourself in the back.
It's a
Yeah,
huge
that's
blessing. It's a gift. I tell people my kids do an amazing job of raising me. They really do.
that's a
And
good way to put it, brother.
man. So yeah, I don't know
Awesome.
what all these are the blessing, but I just stay grateful for what I have.
Oh, absolutely. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about what exactly, like we talked about I talked about, part of me, in your intro, about power brand. What exactly is a power brand, and does it ever get to a point of perpetual motion, or does it always need to be maintained?
Ooh. I think perpetual motion, let me define that real quick.
Sure.
Imagine a device so efficient that once activated it would work until the eventual heat death of the universe itself. One, I'm not God, so I can't define that. But I would I would say that I like Zig Ziglar's thought process on pumping the well. and how if you're not pumping the well hard enough, the water is not going to come, but you have to initially pump, 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 pump. Once the water is flowing, in order to maintain the success, you can pump it occasionally. You don't have to pump with as much velocity. Man, my life is built around now. I didn't know it was always like this, but it's built around being my best self today. And so I'm never going to retire, I hope, from being my best self. And if that's related to my business, or another business that I launch, we've got a couple right now, or my podcast, or helping the Latinos that we help find work in the world, I'm going to show up and do my best as a dad. And so I don't worry so much about the perpetual nature, because that would be me focusing on a destination versus enjoying and being present in the journey itself. For me, a power brand and a powerful leader is one that inspires and leads others with love. And we like to use, we have on our website, you go to firstclassbusiness.io, you'll see our mantra, our little quote there. It says, "Hey, Batman, let us be your Alfred." We want to be that butler that is so close to the Batman, and the Fox, Mr. Fox, who ran the company for Batman. We want to be the ones handling the infrastructure behind the scenes. Fox took care of the scale, but Alfred made sure that Batman didn't, refined a little bit and became a little bit more ethical in what he was doing, and was there like family to support him, and made sure Batman didn't accidentally kill himself in the process. And so all the infrastructure and the systems and all of that, there's so many people who are listening to these solopreneur stories or looking at Instagram profiles and assuming they have absolute magnificent success, or we take the humble, ignorant, apathetic approach of thinking, oh, their testimonials means that all these people are now multi-billionaires. And just because somebody said they liked a program, or just because they have 10,000 people who are willing to say they like a program because they're getting paid on an affiliate commission for anything they hopefully move forward, doesn't mean those people are all telling the absolute truth about what's actually going on. But if you look at the stats, we unmarry the emotional draw to what looks like success, and we couple it with the reality of statistics. 96% are failing within 10 years. And does that mean 4% are thriving and winning? No. It actually means 4% are just surviving past the 10-year mark. And when you've met enough entrepreneurs, and what are we notorious for as entrepreneurs? Making ourselves look amazing. Why? Because it's harder to run transactions if people have doubt and fear about you or your entity. So you run a facade. No, we don't use Facebook ads because we do everything based on referrals. And our referrals, everybody loves working with us. And so therefore, no, what that business owner just said is they're broke and they don't have money to invest in programs like Facebook ads. But nobody's going to say, I don't have money for Facebook ads, because if you don't have money for Facebook ads, what are you doing wrong in your business? Why would you not have money? So it's such a weird scenario where there's facade that goes along with it. There's vanity that people want to lead into. And I'm looking for the leaders who love their people, who want to help the market as much as possible. There's a passion and a fire in their eyes for what they do and for who they're working with. And they're, instead of going to LeBron James, which is on my wall behind me, right? They're going to recruit the superstar, and they tell him, hey, how much does it cost to work with you? LeBron James's staff, his agency, they wouldn't even bother asking. They would block you. That's not whining and dining. That's not how you attract the great people of the world to work with you. If you're coming at them with what's the least amount I can pay you, that's the translation, by the way, of how much does it cost to work with you, you're not going to inspire great leaders to want to work with you. Instead, if you're going and you're saying, hey, if we wanted to work with LeBron James on this project because it aligns with his purpose and we align with what he does, it's like, what can we do to make that possible? Here's a blank contract. What does LeBron James want to work with us? That's how the Lakers organization wins great players like that. If the business owners of the world would start looking at hiring based on a law of abundance versus a scarcity mindset, they would attract more great people to come and work with them. And again, if you're the Batman of the world and you want to go out and be the one who's the visionary and like takes care of your business and does your things great, then bring in an entity that's going to responsibly take care of building the systems and the infrastructure necessary to help you scale. And be the great leader that they want to support. Because if I can tell a business doesn't have great leadership principles, if I can tell they don't want to take care of us, really simple things. And when will we get those results by? Goodbye. It's not about avoiding results. It's about the expectations that this person has and the entitlement that they feel to what it is that they're going to say. The next thing they're going to say is, well, we've already hired 3 people to do this, so why is the next time going to work? I don't know. I've already started to give up. Like, if you're already giving up on a relationship and you're projecting on me that I'm going to be the next person that you blame for your own failures, I'm not touching that relationship. It ain't happening. So these are those principles that are really hard as a nurturer and as a healer to help entrepreneurs want to listen to and hear, because it's all in the blind spots, right? It's all in these areas that nobody's talking about these things. Why? It doesn't feel good. It's not popular to be told that you've got more to learn as a leader. You've got more to develop. You need to do the hard work with us. This is not a fast and easy program. By the way, that translates to get rich quick. And yet we all claim we don't want to get rich quick. No, we're not of that mindset. Yet our actions are often revealing that, no, you're very much a get rich quick addict. You've just learned to say things to make sure that the market doesn't know that you think and feel that way. And you've convinced yourself too that you're not a get rich quick addict, but your reality is not showing that. If I want to find a client, for instance, Dwight, and this is an ultra tip for all of you entrepreneurs out there. If you're a solopreneur, no team's going to want to work with you because they know you like doing it by yourself. Great teams will know that you're going to be toxic in that relationship. 2, if you have a vision for scale, the fastest way for me to see if your vision of scale is true or not is if you have a page that says join our team and has a path for successful careers. If your business does not have a careers path and it does not have a join our team path, then I know you have a very limited vision in terms of serving the people who are meant to help you build that vision and bring it to life. It's the fastest and easiest way for me to know there is no depth of culture involved in that business, and therefore it's not going to stand the test of time. It's not going to be able to scale. They're not even thinking about the people who are supposed to take absolute great care of the people that they really want served. So we've got to work on our vision, our culture, and our leadership in order to market something that matters to the world.
Yeah, to have that power brand. Yeah, so it's
Byproduct.
a lot. Pardon me?
That's the byproduct. Is you have a powerful brand once you focus on those elements of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back to being a solopreneur versus an entrepreneur. When I think about it, I'm more of a solopreneur than an entrepreneur, because I used to have a business where I had multiple people that I was coaching and educating and helping in my industry. And I got to a point over the pandemic, they were weak-minded in the sense of what they wanted. They had no vision. I was continuing to pull away from them. They were continuing to stay stagnant and going, oh my goodness, I have to wear a mask. Oh my goodness, I've got to do this. Oh my goodness, I can't see, you know what I mean? They couldn't see past their face, whereas I was gravitated toward a group of individuals that were saying, where are you going to be on the other side of the pandemic? What are you going to do over the next weeks, months, years? We don't know how long this is going to be. So I was trying to pull my team with me of agents to come along with me, but they weren't having it. So guess what happened?
People don't like to be pulled.
They couldn't see it. Of course, I was trying to, though. I was trying to make them wake up to saying, you know what? Just listen to these people that I'm communicating with, that I've joined their masterminds, right? Maybe it'll help you feel less, controlled by society right now, the governments, by your local family or whatever. Maybe you can see something. And you're right, people don't like to be pulled. And eventually I just kept on moving away from them, right? Because I had to continue on my own path. I had to continue.
Personally, I wouldn't call you a solopreneur, though, because you still have a strong appreciation for people. And so I think you set a dangerous precedence with that. I say this in podcasts all the time, and maybe you're the exception to the rule, Dwight. But I tell people, look, Solopreneur, I've never met a solopreneur who's successful, ever. I've met lots of them that claim they are. And in those situations, they're either stepping on the heads and shoulders of all the people who helped them get to where they are by saying, I've done this alone, AKA solopreneur, or they're completely lying about where they're at. And when you get behind the scenes and see that this private company that doesn't have to share things publicly is actually losing everything that they have while they pretend, or they're working on a janitor's salary, and because they don't have a family to support, they can make everything look really nice on Instagram, but they're miserable. They don't have systems. Everything's broken. I'm sure there are successful solopreneurs out there, like people who work by themselves and only do it by themselves, but I haven't met one. And your story doesn't emulate that. You had a team that helped you get to where you are. You do care about those individuals. And you're right. You came to a junction where there was two paths, and they wanted a certain path. You wanted another. And God bless them, right? They went on their path. You now get to benefit from what was built there. And maybe someday you want to build a team out of it. Maybe you don't. That's for you to decide. I'm not one to propose that people should follow what I say, but I just want to give you the benefit of the doubt, because I know you as a human being now. It's like, I know you care about those people who helped you get to where you are. But yeah, maybe some of our businesses require a split in journey. Maybe it ends up leading to a new team in the future. But I have a feeling you'll attract different types of people this time than you did last time. Because
I already have, but it isn't necessarily within my realm of what I've been doing the last 22 years. It's outside of that. It's more of the life coaching and the personal development, being a speaker, going and sharing my story, and the trials and
it's the next chapter, man.
Well, that's what I've been working on, and I've surrounded myself with, again, quite a few of them. Those great people are living in Texas, where you live, and that's right.
Yeah.
And like you said, when we were talking, for those listening, they consider Alberta the Texas of Canada, right? Because of the fact that we have a lot of the same mentality and thought processes, and have thrived off the energy industry, and we're, well, rednecks. That's, let's be real, right?
Roughnecks.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So I appreciate that, because my definition of solopreneur has never been really defined. I've never really thought about it. The only reason I thought that I mentioned that comment is something that you had said, but I appreciate that, because I'm constantly not concerned. I'm constantly aware and observant of other people around me, and want to uplift them, because as I lift them up, I am moving myself forward. I am the Alfred to Batman for a lot of people, but then I also have Alfreds to me as a Batman.
Correct.
It works both ways, correct?
Correct. Well, in our types of ventures, yes. And my caution to those who are younger and newer in entrepreneurship is they think the path is solopreneur first. Your path wasn't. You were an entrepreneur first, right? And so now you've gotten to a stage where it's also more possible to be able to maintain with less people, because you have an infrastructure and you have a different level of product that is more based on, it's like a Picasso, right? Picasso paints that picture for somebody in 10 minutes, and she says, how much is it? And he says, $10,000. And he says, well, you painted that in 10 minutes. And he says, no, ma'am, it took me 20 years to be able to paint this in 10 minutes, right? And so you've transitioned to a new level of leadership. I worry for the younger, less mature entrepreneurs, as they're called by the elites, that get into the game of solopreneurship thinking their ego is going to sustain them. They don't have case studies. They don't have testimonials. They don't know how to serve yet. They don't understand the value of hospitality skills. They minimize and marginalize their team members. They hire people based on the lowest wages possible, and the highest amount of reviews on Upwork, Fiverr, or elsewhere. They treat their VAs with virtual abuse rather than actually teaching those people how to be successful. And they end up creating a disaster for themselves. But as an exception to the rule myself, right? I was supposed to be the product of a horrible life based on the fact that my parents were divorced. Statistics show I was not supposed to be successful. All right, statistics show that because of abuse, I was not supposed to be successful. Statistics show that because X, Y, and Z, there's all sorts of stats that can burden us with the idea that we're not meant to win. We have to decide not to be a statistic, but we also have to decide to make choices and do things differently than what people are doing to become a stat. And so you as a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or a wantrepreneur, somebody who's getting into business out there, look for who is it that inspires me? Right? Who's got the type of relationships and the type of lifestyle or the type of demeanor that I want to have in my life? And if you're super mature, what I would say to my younger self is don't judge people based on the external. They don't control the external. The external is a blessing from God. Try to get to know who people are at their depth and at their core, and try to magnify your life to emulate that. Try to step into your own core and become your best self. The byproduct that you get out of that, you don't get to control the results. You can plant all the fields in the world. I got a big old farm outside my house. They can plant it all and do all the right external work and all the right inner work too. And if there's a hurricane that comes and wipes out all of the profitability of what they built, if they were building that with the end goal in mind and that's all they cared about, they're going to feel miserable. But if they're centered on the reality that, you know what, I could not control that storm, but I gave my best, I'm ready for my next chapter, you can still have happiness and peace.
Oh, absolutely.
Happiness and peace.
That's exactly what I've been working on, just stepping outside of where I was comfortable and had a predictable result to continuing to go out and serve. But I'm not so ego can be good or bad, but I'm not so egotistical that I think that I'm not going to continue to grow and develop and continue to climb because of other people's influence, like you talked about, right? Emulate, adapt certain things to control, to be your ultimate version of you. So for me, that's going to happen till the day I take my last breath. We could keep on talking, but I know I want to be respectful of your time. We're going to have to have another conversation. This has been fantastic. One last question. Hopefully you have time for this. As I ask everybody this, Jackson, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I think we all want to be loved and really feel love. I know I did. The feeling of knowing that people love me is something that I cherish tremendously, and to a fault. I would invite anybody to dive into the verb of love, what it means to give it, what it means to provide it to others. We lose sight of that, especially in our language. We don't have a conjugation that changes the word. And so it's easy to fall in love with how we receive it. And that robs us of the opportunity to cultivate love for others. And there's so many beautiful things that can only come in this life when we cultivate love. So I hope that we all work on studying how do we cultivate love and give it and exercise the strength and virtue of the verb that it is.
Yes, I love that, and be willing to receive it too. There's some people that have a tough time receiving love. They put up a wall, they put up a shield. But thanks so much for coming on. What's the best way that people can reach out to you?
So visionpros.live, visionproslive.com, just kidding. Visionproslive.com. There's a button in the top right corner and it says be our guest. Come share your vision with us. If we align on visions, I'll be giddy and happy and excited to meet you. Right, that's the easiest way and the most authentic way to get to know me and my team. And then let's start turning the pages, one page at a time, of our future relationships. But don't hesitate to reach out.
Right on.
Find me on any social media thing you want to as well. I'll say hi.
Well, to add to that, for the people that are new to the show, whether you're watching or listening, go to giveaheck.com. At the top, hit on podcast. You'll see a picture of Jackson, and below that, you'll actually see a breakdown of how to get a hold of him, his website that he just mentioned, any social media connections, as well as a timeline of specific topics that we discuss, where if you miss something, you want to hear it again, you can actually find it within that timeline. Or just even better, listen to the show again. Right? We're all human creatures. We can miss stuff. I listen to my own stuff like a coach game day tape. I listen to my own stuff over and over again because I miss things that Jackson might have said, or I might have an even more better realization. I was kind of thinking, well, that kind of sounded good. And then I leave it alone and I move on in life. So don't be afraid to go back and listen to this fantastic episode. Any last words before I wrap up the show, Jackson?
Dwight, you're a practiced genius of what you're doing and how you're helping people. And I really hope people, again, gravitate towards the mentor. I'd encourage all of you to reach out to Dwight. Mentors love to help. That's why they're mentors. And so if you're in that position where you need to upgrade your environment and upgrade the people who support you, then Dwight Heck is a heck of a person to lean into.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Jackson. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.